Captain America has a lot going for him. He's a nice pick to know and have in your back pocket. He's a very technical hero though, and actually can be really lethal when you know what you're doing. Cap can drop you a little bit faster than you think that he could. He doesn't necessarily light up the stat sheet, but he does a really great job at what he does. And as with all these technical mechanical heroes, you can do very poorly with them if you don't know what you're doing. There's a ton of cool combos. There's a ton of animation cancels, more than one. So in the guide, there's a lot to talk about. Practice this in the range, get your timing down. Because as always with my guides, the goal is to have better games. Help each other out, doesn't matter your skill level, beginner to advanced. He's a very unique vanguard, a unique tank. He's a pest, disruption, a dive tank. He can peel and do well at it, protecting your backline. Base 675 health, he moves at 6 meters a second, which is standard. His abilities all kind of go with each other and combo out. Each ability is basic, and I'm going to talk about each one individually, then we can put them all together and combo them out. So where I want to start with Cap is his leading dash. Everything kind of interacts with this. Boost speed and enable Fearless Leap to leap into the air. It's your shift, top right bumper on controller, and for controller players, something I did you can do as well is have this as your left stick click in. So it functions like other sprint you've seen in Call of Duty, Destiny, Apex. And for the sprint, you can also add in a hold to sprint. That's to the player. This gives Captain America a 33.4% movement boost, which means his overall movement speed goes to 8 meters a second from 6. It's much, much faster. And once the sprint is activated, unless you have hold on, just moving forward will sprint. You also have access to the Fearless Leap. Jumps 5 meters in the air, is momentum based. Elite movement tool. In and out of combat, you combo with it. His whole kit pretty much flows through these things. And even just spam jumping is great evasiveness, because he's moving at 8 meters a second. More on that later, but this is worth grouping with his next ability, Super Soldier Slam. Slam down from the sky onto a targeted area, launching up enemies. It's got a 12-second cooldown. It goes with a Fearless Leap. As you leap in the air, you see a cap shield on the ground. That's where you're going to land. It's got a max distance of 20 meters. When you leap on an enemy and damage them, it deals 30 damage. When it kicks them up in the air, it kind of stuns them for a second. It's great to literally dive on an enemy and combo with, but it's also great to move away, be evasive with. Next, the primary attack, Sentinel Strike. Your left click, controller its right trigger. Nothing about it can crit, nothing about it can get headshots. You get up close, strike enemies. Landing the second hit enables a shield throw that can ricochet 4 times. At base, his hands have 4 meters of range, which is good. Wolverine's melee is 3.5 meters. And the hand melees do 40 damage. After 2 hits, you get a 5-second timer. You see it in the middle of your screen with 4 blue charges. Those are your shield throws. So for 5 seconds, that's the time you can throw the 4 shields. Now the shield melee deals 45 damage. Its special effect, it automatically targets enemies near the crosshair. The full damage and duration is right here. It's 40-40 for the 2 melees, then 4 45s for the shields for 260 damage. So just flat out, if you get on a regular DPS character and just hold the trigger, 250 health, it'll down them. But you probably already know that there are animation cancels. There's a couple of them, and then later on, I'm going to show you another to add in. I suggest that you learn both of these core cancels because both have a place. And pretty much for Captain America, the animation cancels are near non-negotiable. You have to learn them. And this can get confusing. I'm going to try my best to fully explain it. First, let's notice 2 things about Captain America when he attacks. If you want, follow along in the practice range and just definitely practice all of this in the range. You're going to understand the difference between these two and the animation cancel overall, and you can get your timing down. First, notice that while sprinting, whenever you melee, Cap stops to melee. Simple enough. He automatically gets out of sprint to throw a melee. That could be with the shield, that could be with his hands. The second thing to notice at the core, the whole system, the whole melee system is based off of you holding the button down. That's what it wants you to do. Hold down the button, get the 2 hand melees, get the 4 charges. You're still holding the button down, you throw those shields. The shields go out 25 meters. The first animation cancel is canceling by melee, and the second animation cancel is canceling by sprint. It's basically the same end goal, but the roles are switched. They're done differently. So let's first start with the melee cancel. For this one, you're going to be sprinting, always. Basically just running into enemies. Press the sprint button, get sprinting, hold W, right into them. You land your 2 hits, get your shield throws, and remember, those shield throws, when you hold down the button, they go 25 meters. While sprint is activated, whenever you release the button during that shield throw, the shield stops wherever you released it, and it comes back to you. So this is the cancel. It happens really fast. But think about it, that shield is going on a 25-meter journey. When you release the button during that journey, it stops wherever it was and returns. And note, you cannot do this quickly. When you have the 4 charges, when you throw one, a charge gets consumed, the counter goes down till you have 0. But if you're sprinting and just mash the button to throw them, you see how the charges get consumed? They're spent, but literally nothing happens. So you can't do this fast. You do it based off of enemy distance when you get a hit. So if you're right on them, you get your 2 regular melee hits with your hands, you're holding W, you then press the primary melee button and release it. Press and release. And when you're up close, it's going to be really, really fast. But the further you are away, you account for the travel time of the shield. So you're going to press and hold it for a split second, then release. Press and hold for a split second and release.
Multiple targets down. I'm a soldier. This is war.
And I'm going to revisit it. We're going to come back, but let's talk about the second way. It's using the sprint to cancel. And I actually prefer this most of the time. You still need to learn both of these. And again, I'm going to explain why soon. Remember, once sprint is enabled, anytime you press forward, cap will sprint. Like right here. This is both using M and K and controller. It looks different, but it's the same thing. It doesn't matter your input. You just press forward, he tries to sprint. So when you do it this way, you are not going to be sprinting forward. You're going to be in place. Once you have those 4 charges up, as an example, you're just standing still. You're going to press the melee button. Don't hold it, just press it. And to cancel, just move forward. Quick W, or quick forward on your left stick if you're on controller. It's canceling it, same, but different. Only this time, once it reaches your target, when you want to cancel, just press forward, and then do it again. So once you get to your shield throws, just tap the button. Once it hits, right after it hits, sprint forward and press it again. This is more controlled, it's more focused.
Unbelievable! You're relieved of duty. That's 3.
And why it can be necessary, I mean, let's just bring them all together. And again, I encourage you to try these out, get a feel for them. The base melee combo, without animation canceling, you just hold down the button. He does the 2 melees, starts throwing 4 shields, they go out 25 meters. His punches do animations, his shield throw do animations, the left arm and the right arm. When you're canceling them, right after a hit, you're moving on to the next hit. So with the melee cancel, keep holding forward while you're sprinting, hold the primary melee button to make the shield go out, release it once it gets a hit. After you hit your target, rinse, repeat. Opposed to the sprint cancel, you do the same thing, you're holding forward, getting in there, landing your 2 melees. When it's shield throw time, you press the button. When the shield hits your target, just move forward. And to be clear, you're not just standing still, you're sprinting forward a little bit, and that's moving towards your target. It's not as aggressive as holding W as the other way, but you're still moving closer to them as you're hitting them. Other times, they're going to be running away, so you're holding sprint, chasing them down, doing the melee cancel while sprinting. You're going to use both of them. And you know what? They both work. They both do the same thing, but you might be more comfortable with one of them. That's fine too. But remember, even if they're moving, like even if you enjoy the sprint cancel one, where you press the button, cancel it by sprinting forward, you kind of stand still. Like, I mean, that shield goes out 25 meters, so you're still going to hit them. You don't have to be close to them. And again, I know it's super confusing, but I hope I got it across well. And we still have a couple more abilities to go through. And then the combos. There's still more to add into these 2 core animation cancels. Like his next ability, Vibranium Energy Saw. Roll the energy charge shield to strike enemies in a path. It's your E, on controller's top left bumper. It goes out 25 meters. It has a cooldown of 8 seconds. It deals 70 damage, but if there's multiple enemies, it'll bounce up to 3 times. But really think about it. This is a very important attack because this is Captain America's most lethal attack. It's 70 damage. Everything else is 30, 40, or 45. So the first enemy it hits, it's 70, but there's a 20% reduction for each ricochet. So it does 70, next enemy 56, next is 44.8. So out of the gate, if there's a low health enemy, this is the only range you have from your base kit. And many times you're going to do this. If they're low health, throw it out. And even the ricochet can get downed. Like right here, it bounced off one and then hit a storm and down the storm. It's very good, but there's something that you need to do with this. An animation cancel. In your settings, I'm going to talk about the shield in a moment. Apply hold to raise shield, because by default it's toggle, meaning that when you press the block button, the shield comes out, you have to press it again to stow it. When you hold to raise the shield, it's hold to block, and when you release the button, it stows. And you need hold to block to do this. And again, it's something you need to practice. It's a fast thing, because when you throw the Vibranium shield, he throws it out, the shield comes back, and he catches it. So what you want to do is when you throw this shield out, as soon as it hits, hold your shield block. And how the cancel works is that you already hit your target, the shield block cancels the shield coming back and him doing the animation of catching it. Same deal, it's distance based. If you're far away, you send the shield, as soon as it hits, hold block. If you're up close, it's a lot faster, throw the shield, right when it hits, hold block. Look at the difference between one punch, Vibranium shield throw, and then a punch. You can see that when you throw that shield, even though it's a short distance, it comes back, he catches it. Versus a punch, throw the Vibranium shield with the cancel and then punch. It is so much faster, and it's a very powerful cancel. And later in the combo section, you're going to see how powerful it is. Next, Liberty Rush. It's your F. Controller, Xbox is going to be X, PlayStation, it's going to be square. It's got a cooldown of 10 seconds. It's a dash, and he dashes out 12 meters. It deals 30 damage if you hit a target. Now, out of the gate, this is mostly used as a getaway tool because a lot of the time you're going to dive in with the slam. When things get kind of hairy, you do a 180 and dash out to get away. Now, you can use it to combo with because it does deal 30 damage. I'll talk about that in the combo section, but most of the time, the slam or the dash is your entry or your exit, one or the other. You're either going to dash in and slam out or slam in and dash out. You need that movement tool. It's also worth noting that while you dash, you can't get taken by the Jeff ult. If you time it right with Eye of Agamotto so you don't have your shield, if you dash during that animation, you won't get stunned. So also keep that in mind. Next, his block, Living Legend. Raise the shield to deflect incoming projectiles, sending them ricocheting in random directions. It's your right click, control its left trigger. Again, hold to block. If it's destroyed, it's got a 5-second cooldown. And after you raise it and put it away, there's a 1-second cooldown to bring it back out, which sucks, but I see why they did that. Because if this wasn't there, it would be the way to animation cancel with Cap, and it'd be like unkillable. So there's a 1-second delay. The shield has 400 health, and when you block something, it ricochets it back in random directions once they hit. And after it takes damage, you stow it, it recovers 50 shield a second. That's how you get the shield back up. It blocks like everything, even ultimates, like Magneto's ultimate here. It's a ricochet, so you can throw it right back. Iron Man, it eats Scarlet Witch ults. It stops Strange ults, the Eye of Agamotto. While he's doing the animation, just hold block, you won't get stunned. And there's some ults that it does poorly against, like Punisher, things like Jeff, of course. But you could block for Psylocke ults. Most of them you can block and be fine. And you're going to use this all the time. To get close, you're going to rush forward, pave a path for your team. Mid-combat, you're going to use it to block. Like you can time Magic, because you can see when Magic goes in and out of limbo. When she comes out, just hold block and block her attack. Things like that. There's a bug though. If you back straight up while blocking, it bleeds through damage. So if you need to block and back up, try to do it at an angle, back left, back right to help lessen that bug. Just don't go straight back. You can sprint forward with it, get your team closer, shield yourself to advance, block and ricochet big attacks like getting up close to a Punisher with a shotgun. It's great. It's a huge part of his kit. You're going to be using it all the time. His team up is with Thor. It's very good. It's got a cooldown of 20 seconds and it lasts for 6 seconds. This gives you a 25-meter electric shield. It deals 50 damage. They do bounce, but the ricochets deal 50% less damage, so 25. In the 6 seconds, you can throw 11 shields, which isn't bad. In 6 seconds, 550 damage. So it's important right when you pop this, be holding down the trigger and let those shields fly. But note, these can't really be canceled well, if at all. You're going to get 11, so for this one, pop it and immediately hold the trigger and just throw them all. It's time-based. Try to find targets. Finally, his ultimate, Freedom Charge. It's a support ult from a tank. Shield held high, carve a path forward, granting both himself and allies along the path continuous bonus health and movement boosts. Using Living Legend or leading dash while the civilian is active can launch up enemies. So this lasts for 10 seconds. As you run, there's a spherical spell field with a 4-meter radius enveloping you, and a spell area behind you. It's got a width of 4 meters along the path. Stars and stripes. Your team wants to go in this because when you cast this, you gain 150 bonus health. You grant allies 100 bonus health, and every second afterward, you gain 100 bonus health, and allies grant 60. Everyone in there gets a 30% movement boost. Since it lasts for 10 seconds, it's kind of like a watered down Cloak and Dagger ult. It's enough to get you guys through it, to counter ult. Sometimes you will use it defensively, or maybe they have some ults going and your team's going down. I suggest that you turn on ally health bars. And there's a reason that's a personal setting for Captain America, because you can see who is low. Run by them, give the health. Once they have blue bars, that means they got the health. You're keeping allies alive, keeping things going. So it has some defensive capabilities, but a lot of the time it's offensive. And guys, non-Captain America users, when you see him Freedom Rush, go with him. It's amazing how many don't. It's free movement, it's free health, and it gets you where you need to go. Because one of the most powerful things about this ult is paving a path, or clearing, let's say, a zone. When you hold the shield up, you boop things. You knock them up into the air, you knock them back. And I'm telling you, it's one of those powerful things you can do with this ult, because you can gain ground and your allies following you are getting that health and movement you can take back over fights. Like, how many times have you been stuck in a match, they get you locked close to the spawn area, they hold that choke point. Like right here, our team was stalled, and this is what this ult is really good at.
Assemble! You're never alone.
You pop that freedom charge and just bull rush in. All the enemies in that choke point, I knocked up, knocked back. And think about it, they're displaced, they're disoriented, they're just free targets for your allies that are behind you. The Magneto noticed this, they ulted, and this went from being stalled with no control to gaining control, winning a team fight, and putting them all back on spawn. And also in this instance, the Star-Lord saw what was going on. They ulted. Fish in a barrel, because they're displaced, they're disrupted. After you do this, it's a great time for your team to use ults, because the enemies are just being popped up into the air over and over, and they're kind of focused on you. This is one of the main ways to use his ultimate, so try it. It could be a mini support ult like Cloak and Dagger, but also a paving ult, very offensive. When Captain does this, it's time for your team to push with him. Now that we understand everything, it's now time to talk about some combos, talk about his playstyle. For the combinations, there are many of them, and it's going to be up to you on where and how to place them. First of all, the base melee cancel is your bread and butter. Whether you do it by sprint cancel or a melee cancel, you're going to do this every engagement anytime you attack, period. So get those down. But you're going to be adding in an energy saw cancel in that combo. Because with Captain America, it all starts the same. One of two ways. One, you're sprinting up close to an enemy, so you get close enough to melee them twice, or you dive into them to melee them twice. Always. So after that, you land your 2 melees. You then have your 4 shield throws. At this time, you're going to do your cancels, again, by holding sprint, doing the melee cancel, or by throwing the melee and canceling it by sprint. When you start doing those shield throws, add in the energy saw cancel, because remember, that's his most lethal attack, 70 damage. And where do you place it with your shield throws? Wherever you're comfortable. You could do this right after you land your first 2 melees. You could do it at the end. You could do it in the middle. Doesn't really matter. I usually throw one regular shield melee, then do the cancel with the buzzsaw. Just put it in there because your total damage goes from 260 to 330. That's a ton of damage very quickly. And that doesn't take into account if you slammed onto them, the 30 damage from that, so 360 damage. Just standing right in front of a Black Panther, it's enough to take them out. It's enough to chunk down tanks. It gets through heals. A lot of damage very quickly. And at any point, you could add in the dash. That's an extra 30 damage. So potentially everything is 390, but that's all of your cooldowns. You do want that dash to get away. I'll talk about it a little bit more in a second. But what's so cool about this combo, adding in that buzzsaw cancel, adding in that extra 70 damage attack. This is a Luna that I dove on, and by the time that she noticed I was there, it was over. It happens very, very quickly. And because no one was there, I wanted to secure the kill. I did do the dash. So it's all situation dependent, but you may or may not have noticed. It happened so quickly. From her point of view, she did try to freeze me. And because I did the shield cancel, it's the actual shield. Even though it's up briefly, it deflected it. Very, very cool. So whenever you do this combo, if you're right on top of them or pretty close, you're going to throw damage on top back because you're reflecting, ricocheting. And a lot of the time, you're going to need that 70 damage anyway to take out non-duelists. And another way to look at it, you get in the air, you dive on them, you pop them up. That's a part of the kit. As they're in the air, right after you slam them, while they're immobile, get off those 2 melees. And by the time they reach the ground, you're going to have your 4 shield charges, and you're going to have distance freedom. You can go wherever you want, be a little bit further away to do your combos. And even if you land 2 melees and they get away, say it's a Moon Knight, he just jumps off. Well, if there's somebody close, you can still do the forward shield throws in the energy saw cancel. That's 250 damage. That'll still down a duelist. If not, it's just a ton of damage from a distance. And with adding in the dash, I'm going to come back to that. You can throw it in there at any time. It's an extra 30 damage, but again, I don't think that you need it. Possibly as a finisher, as you saw I did with the Luna. Or maybe they're running away, you need to close a distance, dash to get close. Some other things that you can do. You could be sprinting just straight at them as you do with one of the cancels, but be looking down a little bit. Get close, get your melees off, and then you jump slam. Just in the middle of combat, you kind of stun them for a second. It's very, very quick to do. You need to aim the slam at their feet, but you can throw that in if you want. And while they're stunned, you can do your shield throws, your saw cancel, whatever. And you may not like it. It's very, very basic, but literally just jumping around them. Because remember, the whole combo does 260. It does a lot of damage. You're sprinting, go right into them, you jump, just get close to them, land those 2 melees, and just jump around them. You don't get any cancels off, but it's sustained damage. If they're lower health like a Moon Knight, those shield throws auto track and can down them. And I had it written down, but the special effect of your Sentinel shield is that they target the enemy closest to your crosshair. That includes hidden enemies like Loki and Invisible Woman, so that's something to know. There's so much you can do. Learn the 2 ways to animation cancel. I think having both in your arsenal is important, but if not, if you're comfortable with one, that's fine too. Do those cancels, but add in that 70 damage with the saw cancel. It's a quick ton of damage. Most of the time, you will be slamming in, putting in work with combos. shielding at times, and when you need to get out, do a 180, go backwards or off to the side and dash. As you're backing up, remember to do it kind of at an angle. Don't back straight up while you're blocking. His playstyle is a pest. You're mostly going for their back line. Captain America has a ton of health. He has the shield. He can defend himself. And when you jump on Luna, most of the time, she's going to try to freeze. So right after you dive, land a hit, hold your block. That way you can ricochet or just block the freeze. Same for Mantis. She's probably going to try to sleep you, so be ready for it. Just Uno reverse. But what you need to really consider, and I talked about at the very beginning, what he does very well. When you dive their support, their back line, I mean, triple support's super tough. Near impossible, but you still do a job there. But with two, when you dive on one, the other support's going to help heal the one being damaged. So even if you don't get one down, you're a pest. You're taking time away. What you've done is allowed little to zero heals for their team. And hopefully your DPS, your tanks took out their front line. Even a fail is a huge win at time. You're going to be going for the support, but also problematic DPS for your team. Like a Punisher gets on his turret, dive on him. I mean, Moon Knight, Hawkeye. Single out things you need to single out. You're going to be dueling tanks as well. There's no getting around it. Or you're going to be going back to your support to help out with Spider-Man or Black Panther on your back line. Cap's literally everywhere. Kind of an overseer. You're going to get on an off angle. They don't see you coming. Dive in on their support. Get their flow messed up. Disrupt it. I highly encourage that you try all of this in the practice range. And do not put on no ability cooldown, because he's going to start doing things he shouldn't do and be faster than he is. And before you know it, you're going to see why a good Captain America is a problem. He is very good, but it all starts with knowing what to do. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Let's talk about Captain America down below. And as always, share tips, help each other out. Gather as much information as you can from here, Reddit, other YouTube videos. Be the best that you can be. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.